Hi everybody, my name is Mike Richter. I work for the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology out of Butte, Montana. I'm also a Gallatin River Task Force board member and resident of Big Sky. I'm going to talk today about water supply sources in Big Sky. Whoops, maybe I'm not. Okay, yeah, I am. Good. Okay, so first we're going to look back at 1993. Here's the wells in 1993 in the Big Sky area. Just to get oriented here, here's Highway 191 and the Gallatin River. Here's the spur road going up to the Meadow Village and the Mountain Village. In 1993, we've been drilling about 10 wells per year. This is just wells drilled per year down here on this graph. Moving forward, okay, so if we look at, now we're looking at 2016. This doesn't come off of my time either. 2016, so what you'll notice is that we have drilled a lot of wells. We've been busy in the last 20 years. And there's an uptick in the rate of well drilling that starts to happen about 1994. We really start developing the groundwater resource in Big Sky. So the question is, what happened in 1994? Well, a lot happened. One of the biggest things that happened, of course, is that the tram went in, and Big Sky goes big in 94. The other thing that was going on is there was a building moratorium. The wastewater treatment system wasn't really up to par back then, so the community and the water sewer district hired Ron Edwards. And Ron Edwards got things figured out, and off we go into the future. Subsequently, I showed up in 1991, and the graph stayed flat. No one cared. Okay, so to take a quick look at where we are monitoring on a long-term basis, we being the Bureau of Mines and Geology, we've got about 12 wells and 3 springs. They're the green triangles are where we are monitoring the Big Sky area on a long-term basis. So what you're seeing there is the surface geology by color. So we're just going to run through this really quick. The yellow is sand and gravel aquifers. Those are basically Big Sky's best aquifers. As you can see, they're very small spatially. They're also not very thick, but they are there. The green areas are Cretaceous sandstones and shales. Not a very good aquifer material, typically high total dissolved solids levels and high pHs and marginal well yields, except where they're connected to some high elevation recharge areas. There's also the Madison limestone in the area, a cavernous limestone that can have a lot of good water in it. Unfortunately, right in the Big Sky area, it's quite deep, 3,000 or 4,000 feet deep right under us right now, so too deep to get to. There's also some fractured rock aquifers in the Gallatin Canyon, and in the intrusive rocks up high up in the mountains, the fractured dacite that's up at Lone Peak and Pioneer Mountain can be a good aquifer up there. If we take a look at where the public water supply wells are in the area, you can see that there's the cluster of wells in the Meadow and the Mountain, got about 1,000 gallons per minute of production out of each zone. Now, it's not a coincidence that these good production wells are close to the surface water. They're close to the streams. So that's not a coincidence. Groundwater and surface water are really connected here in Big Sky. So here is some of our data from the Meadow Village aquifer, where the black is a trend line, and as you can see, we're pretty stable long term. So this is hourly water level data. So you can see that this aquifer responds to changes in climate and snowmelt. Those big spikes are the snowmelt pulse that comes through every year. But overall, looking pretty stable. Here's a closer look. This is some of James Rose's work with the Groundwater Investigations Program at the Bureau, where they've actually made a depth contour map of the Meadow Village aquifer. And what you can see there is that most of this thing is only 10 or 20 feet thick. It's not very thick. So where are the public water supply wells? There they are. They're in that deeper zone. So this is kind of the usable zone of this aquifer right here. And so to really drive this point home, that most of this aquifer is not usable. It's just this deep zone. I want to apply some fly fishing terminology here. So what we would call this in fly fishing would be the honey hole, or better yet, the meat bucket. So what's a meat bucket? The meat bucket is where the big brown trout live. In hydrogeology, the meat bucket is where you get your good well yields and your good water quality. And for the Meadow Village, this is the meat bucket. This is where all of the Meadow Village's water supply comes from, is that little trough in this aquifer. So to zoom in a little closer on our water level data, the interesting thing that happened this year is 2 new wells began to be used. So now we've gone from 3 wells in this aquifer up to 5. So we've kind of entered into this new amount of groundwater pumping out of this aquifer. So it's going to be interesting to watch this thing, and hopefully we remain stable. What you see at the end of the record there is actually pumping impacts from the nearby public water supply well. Our monitoring well is about 20 feet away from one of these new public water supply wells. Okay, now to just kind of bring it back down here to Bucks, what we're calling the lower basin aquifer, and where we got that term lower basin is just off of old maps. There's another sand and gravel aquifer down here. We're sitting on top of it right now. Again, it's not very thick, 30 to 50 feet thick. It has good water quality. Total dissolved solids less than 500 milligrams per liter. It's very hard water. Nitrate values typically are between 1 and 2 milligrams per liter. Background levels for nitrates are less than 0.5. So where could that be coming from? Well, here's all the wells in the area, and this is a well that we're monitoring. But to keep in mind, every well down here has a septic system associated with it. So just something to keep in mind. So here we don't have as detailed of data from this aquifer. These are hand measurements every few months. Actually, from the well that we use is one of Scott Hammond's wells. It's 31 feet deep, great producing well. And overall, the trend on this well definitely looks stable. You can see the snowmelt pulse kind of come through every year, but looks pretty good in terms of a long-term water level trend down here. So that's about all I've got. To summarize, Big Sky's water supply is groundwater. And groundwater is recharged by snowmelt, streams, precipitation, and infiltration. Complex geology in the area, plus all the topographic relief, equals a complicated water system. And alluvial aquifers have the highest yields and best water quality, but they are vulnerable to contamination. And if it's your first experience with this group, I just want to encourage everybody that this is definitely a think, innovate, be yourself kind of group. You're not going to get a lot of sit, stay, heal from this group. So it's all open game. Thanks.